Well, boys, looks like you started the fun without me.
You're all sick. Every last one of you.
We're going to need a bigger gun.
What's the matter? You scared of things that go boom, boom?
Give me one goddamn reason why I shouldn't blow your goddamn brains all over that goddamn wall.
My name is Eric. I'm joined by Michael Kester.
Yes, you are.
And we have a goddamn show to do.
We have a goddamn Killapalooza to do.
Oh yeah, Killapalooza. Those happen.
Those do happen. Despite our better judgment,
yeah,
even.
I know. Well, we keep trying to not.
Maybe this will be the one. Every time, I think for the past 4 or 5 Killapaloozas, we say maybe this will be the one that people realize this isn't worth it. However, I mean, I know we've been talking about it, but there is Saw. I will go until Saw has been done.
That's going to happen. That's not our next Killapalooza.
No.
Should we hint at the... Let's not do that.
No.
Fuck that. No one knows what the next Killapalooza will be. But there'll probably be one. So what are the movies that's going to make people no longer want to listen to a Killapalooza ever again?
Today we're going to cover all 8 of the Amityville horror films. You'll note that
I noted.
We're not covering the Michael Bay prequel.
Okay.
That's because it's
Did you say
Michael
prequel?
Bay.
That's not a prequel.
I'm
it's
sorry.
a sequel.
It's a
what
remake.
What are you talking about? Oh, remake. I said it was a sequel.
Yeah.
We're so not ready to do this show.
Well, anyway, we're not covering that because it's Michael Bay.
Fuck that.
But we are covering the 8 films, which may or may not be about a house in the American Northeast.
I'm going to go with may not. Can we just... Fuck the coy thing. I'm going to go with may not.
Are not. How about are not?
We're going to learn about the Amityville hoax today, which is really the only real thing I hope to accomplish.
That's the meat.
If you've never tuned in for a Killapalooza before, this show tries even less than all the other episodes, and probably succeeds even under that goal. But I'm going to try and dispel some fucking hoax today.
Sounds like a great
time. I think
time.
the movies call for it. At least 3 or 4 of them try to invoke it.
Sure.
We're going to get to the origins of Ghost Cold.
That's true.
Which is something I think always gets edited out of the show, but I joke about all the time. And we're going to have some self-serving announcements.
Sure, that's right. We're also going to talk about some aerial swine.
Oh, yeah, we got to get to that, too. Oh, I forgot about the t-shirt. Okay. First things first here, then. This Glitter Mouse is doing something. Wait, even better. One better. I forgot that I'm involved in this, too.
You're
myself and Glitter Mouse is doing something.
So we're releasing 4 EPs. We just released the one.
So when you say we're, you don't mean you and I. You mean you and Glitter Mouse.
I mean me and Glitter Mouse.
Okay, we got to back up for a second here. So you're in a band.
I'm in a band. I forgot. Yes.
Yeah, nobody knows about that because we only talk about it at the end of the show.
Exactly.
And nobody makes it that far in any of our fucking episodes.
So I'm in a band called Glitter Mouse, and a while ago on the show we mentioned that we had released an EP.
Awesome.
And we're releasing another one on April 1st, but then the following EP after that one, which will probably be sometime around June.
This is insane. You're on what, 4 EPs a year?
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
You are actually involved. Not only are you involved because you wrote part of one of the songs.
It was a bass line. It's about 10 seconds of the song.
But also, you did some serious work on a live video.
I did. So a lot of people ask about this, actually, and it never makes its way to the show because there's nothing really to report. But we do these other projects outside of Double Feature. And you and I joke all the time about how great Double Feature is because we can promote our projects in it, which we never,
for other projects.
We really don't do that nearly as often as we should. But while you and I have worked on a lot of stuff together, and you have about 30 movie scripts sitting around that I'm waiting to do stuff on, and we're just, we're collaborating on all this stuff. We never quite get to the final product.
Yes, exactly.
Now, your products reach their end destination.
And so do yours.
Right. We both make stuff, but none of the things you and I work on, I think because of this fucking show.
Yeah, it's pretty much every time we get together, we talk about our other projects for just about as long as it takes to go, this movie would go with this movie.
Right.
And then we schedule for the next 4 or 5 years of Double Feature.
Yeah, so we never get around to doing stuff. But, so I made a video based off one of your live things. And people love this because we get lots of geeky camera emails all the time. I shot it on a DSLR.
Yep.
On 2 DSLRs. I shot it on a T1i and a T2i, which are they're pretty low end Canon. Anybody could get a hold of one of these things. I don't own either of them.
Yeah.
I borrowed them from other people. And we shot this song, and it's pretty awesome. I just finished doing the color on it. Actually, By the time this goes out, it will be on the internet somewhere.
Yes.
So probably
just glittermouse.com.
Glittermouse.com,
I mean, I know
right?
that's where I'm going to put it.
I'm going to stick it in the show notes somewhere. I think
Sweet.
I'll put it on YouTube or Vimeo or one of those
stick
things.
it on YouTube for sure.
So people can finally see something that you and I have
worked on
collaborated
together.
on. Fan-fucking-tastic. All right, let's get to these awful movies.
Yes.
Wow, I hope people actually watch these movies because then my dumb little video really looks fantastic. As always, there's going to be chapters. There's going to be a lot of chapters.
So many chapters.
We're going to spoil the movies.
Yeah.
What? It could happen. The first one is from 1979.
That's right.
The Amityville Horror.
So
also known as the Amityville Horror, it only goes down from here.
I think it's weird because that's totally the case. And so I had seen the remake. I hadn't seen any of the other films.
So you hadn't even seen 1979's The Amityville Horror.
No.
Awesome.
And I was expecting 1979, James Brolin, Margot Kidder, The Amityville Horror to be this benchmark in horror,
right?
That it seems like it is. You know the house, you know what it looks like, you know that it's the Amityville Horror it's just a verbal staple when it comes to horror. When people hear the Amityville Horror, they go, "That sounds terrible," but they don't realize what they're saying.
Well, I think it's because there's 9 goddamn movies. And anytime there's 9 movies, there must be some sort of history there. And then there's the sort of based on actual whatever, who fucking cares. And there's a book as well. Sleepy Nap Time book for the Amityville Horror.
Right.
And so it's a Stuart Rosenberg movie. It's the guy who did the director of Cool Hand Luke.
Okay.
And you know what? Actually, I want to touch on a lot of the people who made these movies, if for no other reason than to hold them accountable. But mostly we're playing on that 3-point scale again.
Yes, the back to Children of the Corn.
Right, that's what it was.
We invented what we have. It's seriously, it comes up all the time.
Yeah.
It's what we call a 3-point scale, which is we are no longer operating in the
1 to
between
10.
1 to 10. Every film is a 3. It's a matter of where on the 3-point scale it's going to fall.
Where's that decimal?
Yeah.
Which is really, it's also great for double feature because it's a terrible name.
Yeah.
You would never figure out it's worse than the Hudsucker Proxy. No one knows what the fuck this title means. So it's the decimal point, right? We're not talking about if the film is a 2 or a 5 or an 8 or whatever. Mm-hmm. We're talking about if it's 3.2 or 3.5.
Right.
What level of bad are we dealing with? And of course, we're going to evangelize these films as if they're the greatest things ever, because that's what we do on Double Feature.
Any films that get a star is a good film for me.
Yeah, right. So I believe the first 2 movies are the only ones, as far as IMDb goes, that have anything greater than 3 stars.
And honestly, that's surprising because the second movie, I don't know if it was the version that we watched, but it definitely looked like somebody made it in their basement.
Yeah, it really did. But I think because everything's in full frame, it's in 3x4 after the first movie, so that's the only one they made really for cinemas. Or had the budget to get, 16:9, which was apparently hard, I guess.
Yeah.
The point is, a lot of people showed up for the first.
That's true.
And some more people showed up for the second. Yep. And after that, no one really showed up, which is why I think you see those 3 stars.
Sure, and I think that a lot of the reason that the first film it's obvious that this film was the, quote, blockbuster of the bunch. We have James Brolin, who is by no means a small-time actor, especially in 1979. Margot Kidder is Margot Kidder. I mean, I don't know how many people are actually familiar with Margot Kidder by name, but if
pigtails and black and white skirts.
Yeah,
man.
If you've seen a movie in 1970 or between 1970 and 1985, Margot Kidder was probably the hottest one in it. That's kind of where you can let that. She was in Black Christmas.
Yeah, so these guys are playing the Lutz family. So I guess this is as good a time as any to get into kind of the story behind the movie. But it's based on the Jay Anson book, The Amityville Horror. And that book was kind of written as being based on a true story. Now, although the movie never says it's based on a true story, and I guess we should kind of give the movie credit for that, although I think they probably just forgot to include that. I'm sure it was on a poster
I'm guessing
right?
They just assumed that it was,
everybody knew.
Understood.
Yeah, right. So this guy flips out and he kills his whole family, the DeFeo family.
Uh-huh.
And, and they find the guy guilty and he goes away. And so this house goes up for sale. And one of the things that's really great, actually, is that it was furnished, too. Because if you're going to prison and you killed your whole family, no one's really around to...
Sure. Well, they touched on it in, what was that, the Amityville Mirror, where they were talking about the one good thing about killing your whole family is that you get all the inheritance.
Right, yeah. But if you go to jail, then you really don't get shit. So the house was sold furnished, which is actually true. The house was really sold furnished. And, there's some interesting stuff there to talk about when you get into that James Randi area of,
Dowsing.
Not that one, the other one,
of
haunted possessions of how people feel, how people are comfortable with an item. And if they learn the item belonged to a serial killer, then suddenly they're uncomfortable with it.
Right.
So let me just cut to the chase on this. What happens is the Lutzes start talking to DeFeo's attorney, and over what his attorney, William Weber was the guy's name, his attorney. What I think he later said was a bottle of wine. Over a bottle of wine, they concocted this scheme. They came up with this ghost story, and they sold it to a publisher who hired on Jay Anson to write the book, and that's how the hoax got started. And so this is an admitted hoax. I mean, the Lutz family would never admit this because they have so much stock in it. But William Weber came right out and said later that, we made this thing up over a bottle of wine one night. And later the Lutz family sued him, and we'll get to the very litigious family here when we start to talk about some of the later movies. But that's our setup for what happened and why a lot of people think that, the Amityville horror house actually has some sort of history.
Well, that's essentially the setup and teardown to why these films exist.
Right.
They exist because it's supposed to have happened. Otherwise, this film would not be anything more than the Haunted Mansion.
Sure.
Right?
One, the coincidence there while you bring up the Haunted Mansion is it's 28 days, right, that they spend in the house, which of course makes us think about 28 Days Later in that franchise. And the movie breaks it down day by day, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Sometimes interesting, sometimes excruciating.
Yeah, mostly excruciating.
Until it gets to the end and it cheats, and it just says, fuck this, I'm out of here. So it's some kind of mix of, The Exorcist and The Shining, right? You kind of do a little
that's pretty much dead on.
Things.
The Exorcist and The Shining with a little bit of Fistful of Dynamite.
So this is one of the most talked about movies, and the hoax thing is really all I cared to delve into.
Yeah, we don't need to discuss the film. It's been discussed.
The big thing I want to ask you, and I think this will be a reoccurring question we need to get to, is what's really the worst thing that the house does?
Okay, so can I just set this up really quick?
Because this is our slasher, right? The house is our slasher.
So we have a Killapalooza, and by default, Killapalooza has a recurring character that kills people.
That's the very definition, man.
That is what we're doing with Killapalooza, is we're watching a single person raise the body count.
All right.
Started with Jason. Can't get higher than Jason, but maybe more interesting.
Sure.
So when presented with an inanimate object that's killing people, and that's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to say house. I'm going to say an inanimate object that is killing people. We were forced to, instead of come up with the coolest kill, which, believe me, next Killapalooza, that's where that's going to be.
Exciting. I'm excited.
But we instead had to go, well, really, what's the worst thing that happened?
Well, what's the worst a house could do?
And then this one, so if I can just give my top three.
Yeah, could we do them in reverse order?
Yes.
Great.
So the worst thing that the Amityville house does in the Amityville horror to the Lutz family. Number 3. Well, I think we split here. You say flies in a room.
No, I say bleeds.
Oh,
I'm gonna go with bleeds.
Okay, I'm gonna go with bleeds too. But flies in a room was honorable mention.
Okay,
then.
Sure.
So number 3 is bleeds.
The house bleeds. It's a little fucked up.
Yeah, it's messed up, and it's messy.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Number 2 is invites the homeless over.
Yeah, so a homeless guy shows up. Yeah. That's not cool.
He doesn't come inside, but it's still inconvenient and weird. Awkward.
Yeah, isn't that weird? I love this when people talk about actual hauntings and they say, well, how do you explain that? Well, a homeless man shows up. Yeah. Well, that must have been the house, clearly.
And I think the absolute worst thing, and I will stand by this being possibly the worst thing the Amityville house does in the entirety of the series, is steals $1,500.
Fucking jerk.
That's so much money. Fucking house for a caterer.
I know, right? But the house later uses that. That's a beautiful tool, because later when we go, how did the house do these things?
We go, how did the house, who's paying the electric bill?
Yeah, right. $15,000.
$1,500. Come on now.
Are you sure it was only $1,500?
It was $1,500.
Oh yeah, because $15,000 is basically what they paid for the house.
Yeah.
Back then. You know what's funny is they paid $80,000 for this house. Mm-hmm. So purports the first movie. The house sold in the last couple of years for I think over $1 million.
Wow.
I wonder how much of that $1,500 was left. So we move on to Amityville Horror number 2, which is called The Possession.
The Possession.
It's the 1982 film.
Sure.
And so we're talking about a completely different crew already. Yeah. We've already abandoned the first crew.
Everything is different.
It's written by somebody we've seen on the show before, Tommy Lee Wallace, who did, he was both the director and writer of the movie It,
Okay,
very
which was
famous
not on the
movie.
show.
Right, but Halloween 3, which we may forget as being on the show. I don't even remember what happened in
Halloween
that movie.
3 is Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, and it has to
It's
do
like
with
Illuminati,
some masks.
or sure. And this is where we really start to see some of those influences with The Exorcist.
Sure. Well, and the thing about the second Amityville movie is it's remarkably similar to the second Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
It is.
This is, and we talked about it with Nightmare on Elm Street, so go ahead, go back and listen to it, and you can kind of discuss why.
Don't do that. That was year one. Don't listen to that.
But the one thing that I think is really strong about it is that it takes the ideology and morphs it in a really interesting way. It at least comes up with an idea. I swear to God, this is the only fucking film in this franchise that comes up with an idea.
All right, sure.
And it's that the kid gets possessed by the house and then becomes the killer. It's Jason Goes to Hell.
See, when you say Freddy, I start thinking Freddy playing video games.
No, I'm talking the kid that turns into Freddy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Father Pecoraro, who was actually in the real life Amityville Horror, he was the one who blessed the house. And unfortunately, he was never attacked by ghosts.
Bummer.
And he also says he was never attacked by ghosts. So Jay Anson thinks, well, we can't use his name because he wasn't attacked. Let me make up a priest. So that's where the original priest in the first movie comes from.
Played by Rod Steiger.
Yeah, a priest that they made up. They replaced him in that book and then in the story in the film. So we get even more priests, even more of the church in the second movie. And we start to really see where they're relying on The Exorcist to sell the story. That was what was really popular at the time.
Sure.
That was part of that era of horror.
Sure.
And we're just driving those things home.
When you're dealing with demons, you have to... I mean, okay, so Paranormal Activity. When you're dealing with demons, you need people.
Yeah.
Because demons are invisible, apparently.
Yeah,
fucking whatever. Sure. So you need a priest as your protagonist because the priest can wave shit around and he can fight invisible stuff.
Yeah, right.
For some reason. And the rest of the family just has to kind of be annoyed, get pissed that their tablecloth is hanging on their wall.
That's such a good shot, though.
That is a good shot.
I have a soft spot in my heart for this film in the franchise.
Definitely, this is my second favorite.
It reminds me of, you mentioned Black Christmas earlier. That sort of April Fool's era of horror.
Well, it's got the good 80s camp going.
Yeah, it does. It does, and it has a lot of interesting stuff from a filmmaking perspective. It has those first-person shots, coming up from hell, coming up from the basement, where the ghost or possession or whatever the fuck it is takes a sheet and puts it over the cross.
Sure.
It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Right.
Because if it could just take sheets and whip them around, why does it need to possess anybody? Actually, I have the answer to that question, and it's for incest.
That's true. So we get what is possibly the most erotic incest scene I've ever seen in a film.
Awesome.
And that's...
Please send those to doublefeatureshow@gmail.com, by the way. We're always on the lookout.
But that also sparks possibly the strangest theme we've ever seen in a Killapalooza, which is the incest theme.
Yeah.
And we discussed briefly, we riffed on why maybe this is. Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing it's because you have a house, and it's a big house. It's not an apartment. It's not Hellraiser 3. You have a house. So people that move in are going to be a family, and if the house is going to be torturing this family, the best way to do that is to fuck with the family, right?
Yeah, turn them against each other.
Or turn them inside each other.
Sure. That would have been so much dirtier outside of a Killapalooza, but I keep thinking about Martyrs now. Or maybe The Fly, right? Turn it inside out. Anyways, my point was, I don't think I had a point, just incest. Wonderful, wonderful incest. Yeah. I love seeing incest in movies because it's, when we talk about taboos, incest is one of those taboos. I mean, you look at something like legalizing drugs or drug use. Drug use is kind of a general taboo. It's not very frowned upon talking about. It's not very touchy. Religion is a taboo that's more touchy. Some people are very vocal about it. Then you get into the John Waters area of fetishes that most people don't talk about.
Prostitution.
We can move into some stuff on this show that's so taboo, barely anyone talks about it. And then there's incest, which I believe just I'm okay with.
Yeah, I'm totally okay with incest. So here's the thing, and this is probably the only...
Do you have any idea the trouble you've gotten
conversation
yourself into
on the internet about that's going to say this, and I want everybody listening before they freak out and skip to the third/end of this whole podcast.
Fuck, there's chapters.
Aside from the biological effects of incest, so let's assume safe sex, like everybody should be doing anyway.
Sure.
What's the big deal? ? aside from the fact that it's fucking weird, I mean, I would never have sexual relations with anybody I was related to.
Sure.
However,
you already have normal relations. Why do you need sexual ones?
Exactly. But take for example, two people are born, a brother and a sister, separated at birth. They never see each other. Then they meet at a bar at an airport in LA, like each other, find out they have a lot in common, go home and fuck. Protected, they don't have any babies. What's the big deal there?
That's a really interesting question you raise. Of course, this is the worst place to have it, which is why we need to have that conversation here. And I'm kind of with you on that. I'm not sure I can find a legitimate reason. Yeah, we'll get over all the creepy and whatever.
Sure,
that's
it's
taboos,
creepy
right?
and it's gross, and I would never do it. Don't get me wrong.
But is it okay?
I don't see the problem with it.
Sure.
Like it's the same thing. I would never do drugs. Right. I'm not comfortable doing drugs.
Sure.
That's not a part of my life. That doesn't mean I don't think other people should be allowed to do it. I don't have a problem with other people doing drugs.
I'd love for our audience to challenge that, though. If you could think of a legitimate reason outside of childbirth. Childbirth, I totally understand biologically why that's a bad idea. But I think everything else is just social.
Yeah.
I don't think a rational, a person who's talking about the hoaxes behind the Amityville Horror, if you're okay with all the other stuff, all the other taboos we're talking about, why not incest?
I'm always happy to be proven wrong, but honestly, I can't find the answer.
Great. We'll stick it on the year-end show. Second request for emails, doublefeatureshow@gmail.com. So much like gore or violence or vulgarity, when I see incest in a movie, I totally revel in it. I think, fuck yes, incest. No one is okay with doing this. Now we're getting something that's challenging, something that'll push people's buttons a little bit. And the best part about the incest in this movie, and you're right, they do take it pretty far.
Yeah.
They make it a pretty erotic scene. And I love how okay she is with it.
Yeah.
This isn't some kind of weird rape incest, it's demons. She's totally fine with it.
It's this weird kind of naivety that he says, take off your nightgown. And instead, that would be the moment, right?
Yeah.
That would be the moment where you would go, what the fuck is wrong with you? You're my brother. But for some reason, she's too naive.
Sure.
Or maybe she just fucking wants it. And so she takes her nightgown off.
Okay, just for a second. Yeah, right. That's a long goddamn second. My favorite part, though, and I didn't think I could have more of a favorite part after that happened. I didn't think it would get any better. But in fact, it does. Later, she confesses that he did it just to hurt God.
Right, he did it to hurt God.
Fucking hot is that? All right, enough about incest. We need to talk about Sky Pig.
Oh yes, this is the final show of Sky Pig, isn't it?
Well, no, Sky Pig comes back, and we'll talk about Sky Pig coming back. You may forget, but there's not as clear of a Sky Pig. They said in the book that there was a pig, Jody, I think was the name of the pig.
The pig has a name.
That actually showed up, a ghost pig or something. In the sky or in the windows of this house. And we do actually see, and I had to confirm that through the book to make sure, but it is a pig. Mm-hmm. I was kind of just joking about it. It looks like a pig. But it's really a pig that they're showing in these movies that appears in the windows and appears in the sky. This demonic pig, these demonic eyes.
By demonic, you mean red.
That is all I mean. And so later they try and make us think that the eyes were actually the windows of the house. Mm-hmm. But we all know that it's Sky Pig.
It's Sky Pig.
Sky Pig is the slasher in these.
The Sky Pig
movies.
is the champion.
And I think he appears in as many movies as the house does. So it's probably
I think that's about right.
I just don't know how the movie didn't use the Sky Pig
Sky
more.
Pig would be awesome.
Okay, explain this to me. You have a evil devil pig that floats in the sky. How do you not capitalize on that? You just show it in a window, that's it? It's creepy, leave it alone, time to go?
Yeah.
How are we not seeing Sky Pig in every fucking movie?
You're asking the same franchise that creeps a lamp across the floor.
Alright, so other than create the Sky Pig, obey Sky Pig, what's the worst thing the house did? Rain?
Rain. I think Rain. I mean,
is Rain the worst one?
I honestly think Rain is probably the worst.
I mean, outside of the, gumming up the toilet with black goo thing that the other movie did.
There's the possession and there's the incest, but that's all, I can't really comment on that. So I have to go with Rain.
It exploded at the end. There was some fireballs that came out, so that might be the worst thing the house did.
Yeah, Rain or explode. I'm still going with Rain.
Yeah, why would you have rain during your explosions, though? Doesn't that kind of... I guess it doesn't actually diminish the effect, but you want the house to burn to the fucking ground.
Yeah, let's wait for the next movie.
Poor planning. Amityville 3, otherwise known as Amityville... I can't even say it, man.
It's Amityville 3D.
God damn it.
Amityville, oh my god, 3D!
It's not cute. We didn't let Jason get away with this. Amityville does not get a pass either. The very next year, we have another crew full of people to make this fucking movie. Although the director, whose name I'm sure I can't pronounce, first name is Richard, he directed Red Sonja and Conan the Destroyer. He did Soylent Green.
Okay.
So he actually has some movies that people have seen under his belt.
Not this one, however.
Maybe not a 3D movie.
Sure.
But,
well, this one is kind of, first off, it's the end of the naming convention where they use numbers. But
I'll
also
call it Amityville Horror 3:3D. But I think the actual title is Amityville Horror 3D, and that does not count.
Well, but see, it doesn't have horror in it. It's just called Amityville.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's called Amityville 3D.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
A lot of it has to do with the fact, with all the legality behind it. So this film has two major points. One is that it's an illegitimate bastard sequel.
Sure.
It's not allowed by the Lutz family or their descendants or whatever.
estate or whatever.
The other thing is that it's also based on a book. It's based on a different kind of book.
Well, yeah, so it's sort of Steve Kaplan's story.
Mm-hmm.
So this is interesting. The movie starts with a fake seance, which I guess is redundant because all seances are fake.
Right, but this one has ghostwriter.
But it says a lot about skepticism and investigation. To me, it's a lot more interesting to look at why that might have happened instead of what the movie's trying to say about that, because I don't think it even really knows. I would speculate that it might be the backlash from the hoax.
Sure.
So we're talking about several years out now.
This is 83.
Yeah, so people kind of know the story. They're probably well educated in knowing that it's a hoax. It's one of those things where it's kind of like when 9/11 happened. Mm-hmm. And in the weeks after 9/11, there were a lot of hoaxes going around. And a couple months later, people got a better idea of the story. And so 2 years out from 9/11, or let's look at now, almost a decade later or whatever, right?
Sure.
The only people who believe the hoaxes are crazy people. So there's a backlash against those crazy people, as we talked about on Loose Change, the Loose Change show, where we were part of that backlash because fuck 9/11 conspiracy people. So I think Amityville's experiencing the same thing.
Sure.
In a smaller and a less important sense.
With more Meg Ryan.
With more Meg Ryan. So this gets more into the real story. Kaplan was this guy who the Lutz family brought in. He's a paranormal investigator, and he was going to verify that their story was true and there were really pig hooves on the front lawn or whatever the fuck was
pig
going on.
Pig hooves in the sky lawn.
To verify all these claims that they'd made.
Right on.
And so he goes in. And what's funny is, this guy's a paranormal investigator. He believes in fucking everything under the sun, because that's just how that works. And he comes away from the house and says, oh yeah, that's a hoax. I couldn't verify any of that stuff. And so the Lutz family was not happy with this at all. And Kaplan eventually wrote this book, the Amityville Horror Conspiracy, I think it was called, talking about all these claims they made and how they couldn't possibly be true, how the evidence contradicted that. I think he was actually worried that the Lutz family and the Amityville horror story would kind of tarnish the record, maybe
tarnish the legitimacy of the bullshit.
Of the paranormal investigation. Mm-hmm. And we're not talking legitimate Joe Nickel paranormal investigation. We're talking a crazy guy in the 80s paranormal investigation. So while he's running around telling you Bigfoot exists and UFOs landed here, he's saying, but that Amityville thing, that's too much for even me, which I love. So they bring in Ed and Lorraine Warren. Mm-hmm. Ed and Lorraine Warren were this couple of so-called investigators who would believe everything, but Kaplan believes everything, right? Mm-hmm. So they believed even more than Kaplan did. And we don't often enough plug Rebecca Watson's show, The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, but they described Ed and Lorraine Warren as thinking the Amityville Horror House was the second most haunted place in the world.
Wait, but then where's the first place?
The first place is Ed and Lorraine Warren's basement.
Uh-huh. What's the temperature in their basement? Or at the Amityville house?
I believe it's ghost cold.
Oh.
This sounds super rehearsed, but you just know where this is going, right? Absolutely. It's ghost cold. Yep. That's it. It's Ed and Lorraine Warren, and they would talk about how spirits leave behind Banshee breeze.
Banshee breezes, a geisty gust.
Ghost cold, man. So you and I use ghost cold all the time when we'll talk to completely rational people or friends of ours, and then we'll stumble across something where they'll say, oh, but ghosts, I believe those were real because there was one in my house growing up or whatever fucking...
When I was little, the door closed.
We've been in the same room with these people so often. Well-meaning people that we love and respect that happen to believe in ghosts for stupid reasons. Mm-hmm. And so those stupid reasons are called ghost cold. Mockingly, of course. But there's a bunch of strange stuff in here. The Reveal magazine they talk about looks a lot like Skeptic magazine, which is kind of odd. They use fucking ghost meters, whatever the hell that... You know those shows that all exist? Those ghost hunters, paranormal,
ghost hunters,
whatever.
I feel a wetness.
Thank you, South Park. Yeah, fuck those things. You know, you run around with this scientific looking equipment. It measures electromagnetism or what have you. And suddenly it looks like you're doing something legitimate, right? People see that on television and they go, well...
Put a handle on your Game Boy and then you can investigate for ghosts.
Gets back to dowsing, right?
Yeah.
You have something tangible in your hand. A twig is an item that actually exists, and if the twig is pointing that way, therefore dowsing must be an actual thing that exists. I mean, you know, we have a meter, and the meter goes up when you get closer to magnetic ranges.
Sure.
And so if somebody tells you, well, I don't know if there's ghosts, but I do have this meter, and we'll see if it goes up. We're going to see, we're going to test it, right? That's totally valid.
Sure.
I don't know if there's ghosts, let's test it. And so they get near some sources of electricity, and the meter goes up, and well, okay, we tested it, there's ghosts. It's so fucking fraudulent, and I hate it. And so we fall into a lot of that stuff at the end. But we also have a 3D swordfish. So the only thing that matters to me is what's the worst thing the house did.
I think this one is where it explodes.
Well, so we have a blown fuse. We have ghost cold.
True.
We have some ghastly moans. Don't forget those. That literally happens.
Yeah, that's true.
I thought it was the girl making fun of ghastly moans, but it turns out there were really ghastly moans. There's some steam. Oh, you know what? The car fire. That was pretty bad, right?
Yeah, okay,
the car lights
so
on fire?
we need to briefly talk about how we need to talk about the outsourcing of the demonology
of the horror.
So the thing about the Amityville house is sometimes it will outsource its mischief to its fly brigade. That it can spontaneously grow anywhere that there is anything to do with the fucking Amityville house, whether it's post or pre-estate sale. And the flies can get in your car, and then your car is under the wrath of the demons from whether it's an Indian burial ground or a sacrificial chamber, or you killed my puppy. I don't even fucking know exactly why it's evil, but the flies can burn your car.
All right, if you don't want to count the flies, then I'm going to count the Lapidus, where we're smashing people down with doors.
That's true.
I think that might be.
There's a door smash.
There is an actual explosion at the end. The house really blows up. No fucking kidding blows up. Not like last time where there were some explosions that came out of the windows.
Yeah, it's
the
just
house
the
is
doorways
gone.
left.
And it stays on that for a while. We really see the house go.
Drives it home.
It is gone.
No more house eyes.
Until the fourth film, The Evil Escapes.
And the evil does escape.
Which is funny because we don't know if the third is canon at this point.
Right.
We don't know if the fourth one is actually Amityville Horror 4, or if they're just calling it Amityville 4 because you can just put a 4 after the name of a town and that's an okay legal grounds. And I mean, the Lutzes, they sued everybody. So I don't know what was going on here.
Well, I can tell you what's going on here.
Great.
So the film starts with a Jason Goes to Hell-esque beginning where we don't know why the house is back or what is actually going on. But the part that we want to see the most, which is people getting killed in the house, is just ending when we arrive.
Right.
We arrive to the police arresting the guy or shooting the guy who has killed everybody in the house.
Right.
Which leaves the house open and again up for sale, but they're not going to furnish it. They're going to sell everything in the estate, including the fucking clearly outdoor front stoop lamp that seems to be sitting in one of the bedrooms. And if you're paying close attention, you can watch the demon move through the power cable and into the lamp.
By close attention, you mean watching the only thing in the fucking frame.
Exactly. And if you're wondering, well, come on, who's paying for the electricity? The house has $1,500.
So don't make fun of the direction too much. It's a made-for-TV movie, and it's made by Sander Stern, who, if you've never heard his name before, is fine because he's the writer of the first Amityville Horror movie.
I'm going to say right now that despite the fact that I think that this is a gross misappropriation of the Amityville name, this is my favorite movie.
Ooh, excellent, excellent. I love the fact that you start to see they're scraping the bottom of the barrel to find directors.
Yeah.
Here we can get somebody who's vaguely attached. They were the writer of the first movie. They didn't write the book. They don't have, I mean, they wrote the first movie. They're the only person they could get back. He's going to go ahead and direct. I like to think that he stepped up to the plate and said, you know what, I will save this franchise. I got a great new idea.
So this is where we get this thing that becomes the remaining part of the Amityville horror series, with the exception of the fifth film. And that's that anything in the house is also evil.
Sure, it's part of the house, I guess.
The house has extended itself to the stuff that was in it. So the evil is not just the house, but the things that were in the house while the murders took place.
Ah, so you're thinking, well, this lamp, I could go back to the first movie and just look for it, right? Or maybe it's in the second movie, or maybe they put it in the thing that's funny is not only is it a lamp, okay? They chose to go with a lamp, but it happens to be a lamp that didn't even appear in the other movies.
It's a random
very
lamp.
Noticeable, too.
It's very obvious. It's very ostentatious. It's super ugly. And I'm going to spoil it. In fact, I'm going to spoil every film right now except for the fifth one. In order to save yourself and your family, they just have to break it.
Yeah, just break the object.
That's all they have to do.
Okay, so if I may inject some more skepticism here.
Really? You're going to inject skepticism into an evil lamp
and it's going to be good.
That was shipped to LA and is now torturing a family with its electrical powers?
I thought it was shipped to Erie, Indiana.
No, there was a layover.
If you think about this movie too hard, in fact, if you think about it at all, it forces you to examine your own beliefs about a haunted house.
I thought you were going to say your own beliefs about a haunted lamp there.
I could have said your own beliefs about incest, but we already examined those beliefs. I really hope someone chaptered over here. So think about this. Maybe you believe in haunted houses, okay? And so I'm not going to mock our audience because I really like our audience. In fact, more than our mutual friends because I'll mock those fuckers.
Podmanity is probably my favorite people.
And so you think the house is haunted. That's fine. Somebody murdered their entire family. Something very bad happened there. Honestly, I consider myself a very skeptical individual. Being in that house would creep me out a little bit. It would also be really fucking cool.
Yeah.
And very often I thought about how cool it would be to host our show from the Amityville house. You know what else is funny? I was excited to come on here and tell you I know somebody who has been to the Amityville house, but apparently everybody's been to it.
Pretty much everyone has been to the Amityville house.
Not a big deal.
Been by it, drove by it, thrown eggs at it, TP'd.
Not a big deal.
Taken care of.
What I was getting at, though, is you think this house is haunted. The furniture's still there. It's creepy. That's where the murders took place. But what if part of the house burnt down and they rebuild it? Does it still have that mystical value?
I don't know. I'm not sure what ghosts can survive through. Some movies will have me believe that all you have to do is give it a good vacuuming and you'll suck up all the ghosts. Other movie, I mean, if the house is actually built on an Indian burial ground, if you rebuild on it, it's still desecrating it, right? You
That's
can't
one of the things
desecrate.
Kaplan talked about. It's also not built on it. The Indians, they have no idea what they're talking about.
The American Northeast was not a big Indian burial ground place.
So we know it's not structural support beams in the house, but we tear down, we deconstruct the house piece by piece, and we try and discover, all right, where is the haunting? Where is the evil? Where does it live? Does it live in the hole in the basement? Is that really where it's at?
Sure.
Can you take an object? Would one object as absurd as a fucking lamp, would that contain the evil? Or do you think a lamp haunting people is a bit too fucking absurd even for you?
It's similar to trying to figure out really who a person is.
Where the soul lies?
Yeah, I guess. Well, not even the soul, just the identity.
Sure.
If you got, completely got your face restructured with plastic surgery, clearly still you, right?
Sure.
If you got your voice changed, clearly still you. Sex
Not
change,
as far as the podcast
definitely
is
still
concerned.
you.
Okay.
It's basically, I mean, it tends to come down to you are your brain, right?
Yeah.
So where's the brain of a house is the ultimate question. And apparently it lies somewhere in the electrical system.
So before we get to the worst thing that the house did, this is starting to remind me of these other slasher movies where the slasher's only in it for 2 minutes.
Sure.
You know, those movies that we don't like.
Everything after Hellraiser 4.
So I'm excited to hear that this is one of your favorite movies.
This is my favorite.
Because usually when we only have the slasher for 2 seconds, you want Jason back, and you're upset that we only saw the real Jason in dream sequences. Yeah. Guess which fucking movie that was.
But the thing is with this film is...
I don't think you're married to the house as a slasher.
I'm not. The house betrayed me.
Sure.
The house we've covered it, right? What has the house fucking done?
It cooked a bird in this movie.
See, but it's not the house. That is my buddy, the old Amityville lamp.
Okay, but what about Move Ominously? That's
house never did that either.
That's what the lamp did. I think for me, it's the garbage disposal.
Garbage disposal? That is pretty... So the thing that's weird about the garbage disposal is that the lamp can't really do anything, and then the garbage disposal plumber man in his jumpsuit shows up and says, well, it's not electrical because you can't move a switch electrically.
Right. I like how they really spend a lot of time talking about that switch like that means anything.
We were trying to figure out the whole time if it could only do electrical things.
Sure, what are the rules?
Try to justify how certain things were electrical.
Sure.
Around the time that the plumber gets black gooed and then slapped with a severed hand... About that time was when I realized that it's not just electrical. It can be your dad, and until you throw it out that fucking window, it's going to persist to annoy you.
It's funny because that was all of 2 minutes after you said, let's see what's not electrical. Let's see how to link these things to electricity, and we hit the plumbing immediately. So it gets back into that house's electricity and fucks with the house itself.
Sure.
That can't be true because you destroy the lamp and you destroy the evil.
Well,
right?
That's not true. You destroy the lamp and it moves to Sky Pig Cat.
Oh my God. It cuts to the cat and zooms in on its face. And then the devil eyes, the red eye, as it's called in the photography field. It comes up and you have credits. Credits over the evil cat eyes. We're serious about this.
Mm-hmm.
Amityville Horror 5, The Amityville Curse.
Okay.
I should note once again that I'm just adding numbers to these. It's not actually called the fifth one. But it's from 1990 and it's directed by Tom Barry.
So the thing about this film is this is the black sheep. This is the outcast of the entire series. This is the Jason 5. This is the Halloween 3.
Well, it's written by no less than, 4 or 5 people? Mm-hmm. You have the vague tie-in to the book that at this point the movies are just saying inspired by the book or loosely based on the book.
The film makes no sense. It has no connection to the other films whatsoever. The only connection is that it takes place in Amityville. Sure. We are not in the house from the first 3 films. We don't have any belongings from the house in the first 3 films. It just turns out all of Amityville is evil.
Yeah, right.
And I guess the whole thing is kind of Scooby-Doo murder mystery-esque.
It is very Scooby-Doo,
and it
isn't
comes
it?
back around to this weird murder that takes place in the beginning of the film, which by the time the movie starts, I don't remember that happened.
No.
The only thing this film is to me is Kim Coates from Sons of Anarchy.
I love that Scooby-Doo feel. I love that, what's really unique about this movie is that it's a story. You get I think of the scene where they're all around the fireplace, right? You get that camaraderie. You get all of the kids hanging out around the fireplace, chatting, ghost stories, whatever, spending the night in the haunted house. It goes back to the Vincent Price Rainy Day Clue episode that we did, and that feeling you get in so many of those movies. However, these aren't actually kids. They're 30-somethings. Right? They're repairing and trying to resell a house.
Yeah, it's a real estate move.
Right. Yeah, so it's this strange mix of Scooby-Doo and that scene from American Beauty where she's trying to sell the house. I mean, that's the genetic makeup of this film. And it follows the spooky teenage sort of formula where you go off into these different rooms. Some of them are couples. One is awkwardly, maybe kind of attracted to the other one. Masturbating, sure. And that's when the house seizes its opportunity and, stops them from having a shower sex scene.
Sure.
From being nude, from the movie having nudity. The house, the slasher is really literally stopping nudity from entering
it's ruining
the
all the
franchise.
Fun. It's ruining all the fun on both sides of the screen.
And so you could tell it's not the main house because the worst thing it can do is break a wine bottle in somebody's hand.
Well, it brings us back around to the 5th Friday the 13th, where by the end you almost are okay with it. Almost. So we're not because we really like Jason.
Yeah.
But if it weren't Jason, we're almost okay with it because it's going, hey, look, no supernatural shit. Mm-hmm. Turns out one of the guys in this house is just a murderer. But then you have to go back and look at some of the weird stuff that happens and know the house is also haunted.
Yeah.
By, I guess, the spirit of a priest that was killed in a psychotic rampage? I don't even understand.
Well, it's possessing dogs. That's another staple that comes up is you have these angry dogs in all of these movies. Possessing animals. It couldn't... See, this is the thing, man. Sky Pig. Just bring back Sky Pig.
That's all any of these films needs.
Instead, we inhabit a dog. Think about this. Just imagine this situation. You're around a fireplace with your friends, 2 of whom are going to get naked in the shower and not invite you later, right? And so mysterious things are happening. One cuts open their hand. You have kind of an unsettling night, right? You wake up the next day. It's about 6 a.m., 6 in the morning. You open the shades or whatever, and you look outside not to see daylight, but a rain of fucking terror and a giant flaming pig in the sky with demon eyes. Come on, such a better movie. Amityville number 6.
It's about time.
You didn't give me even an opportunity there, did you? You were really excited for that.
This is I think of all of the Killapalooza titles, this is my favorite one.
This is really the worst Killapalooza title of all time.
Amityville, it's about time.
Amityville, it's about time. What do you even say about that?
Well, the thing that's actually...
They were going to call it Amityville 1992, It's About Time.
Yeah.
How much better of a title is that? Date it just a little bit more.
The thing that's shocking about this film is that you go into it... We were trying to figure out... So we get the title, It's About Time, and before we watch it, we're both going, are they going to time travel? Are they going to finally go to space? Is something going to happen?
For space, yeah.
Are they jumping the shark in this franchise finally? Turns out it's just, they get a clock. They get a clock from the Amityville house, and it's about time. And eventually there's some weird time travel thing at the end where baby Rusty decides that it's time for him to venture out. And then she gets old in a really disastrous special effects scene.
Yeah, it's not so good.
But then,
by special effects, you mean they just had an older actor play the old version of her?
Elderly woman. But again, so I'm going to just go ahead and spoil it. They break the clock, and then they're done.
So it sort of slows down time. Don't you remember the moments where time is getting slow and the sound is slowing?
And then he has like a conversation with a guy about, don't have sex with my wife. Wait, did you have sex with my wife? I hated both of those guys.
And then they wake up from a dream?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Every fucking movie.
Wake up from a dream. Have to do it. It's tried and true, Michael. It always works. Name an instance where wake up from a dream has not worked.
I'm not even entertaining that.
I think we've seen a couple movies where it has worked. The second Halloween,
That's true.
The second Rob Zombie Halloween is the only time wake up from a dream. But
see, the second Rob Zombie Halloween wake up from a dream isn't wake up from a dream, psych, that didn't happen. It's wake up from a dream, that now great. Now that you know what happened, it's instead of a flashback.
Yeah, right.
It's in lieu of a flashback. You have a night terror about the night it happened. You know what I mean?
Only by betraying the mechanism does it become a valid thing that you can try and use in your movie. But we do get actual nudity right away.
That's true.
Some good, sweaty, awkward sex.
Very.
And this is when the movies realize that they're a slasher franchise. Somebody in the production office, probably Christopher DeFaria, says, you like, I'm just going to give him credit. Or Antonio Toro, I don't know. It could be either one. They say, hey, we've had 6 of these movies. This is a slasher franchise. People need to get fucking.
Yeah.
And so there's some sweaty, awesome sex.
Super sweaty.
It really is very sweaty. That's one of the powers of the house. I actually think this modern house is more terrifying in how tacky and daycare it looks than anything that happened in the actual Amityville house.
Yeah. Well, the thing about this film that I just don't really follow is that there's a plot that the film seems like it knows that there's an Amityville series going on and that they're kind of ignoring it. So the thing that I found to be the most interesting thing about the film, and they barely gloss over it, is that the father who brings the Amityville clock home also is assigned to do this housing renovation project in Amityville where he's essentially designing an entire town.
Right.
In the same place that the Amityville Horror took place in 1979, that film. And it turns out that something possesses him and he ends up designing the same house.
Sure.
Multiple times. And I'm thinking in my head, wishing that they could have gone to some fucking place with this film where the house was it possessed a contractor using its last remaining object to rebuild it and rebuild it in greater numbers as a sand people.
Sure.
That's the cool part of this film, is that we have a contractor who's been possessed by the demons of the house to bring it back to life.
Right.
You know, that's the it's about time for me.
Sure.
But instead, it's about cheating on your husband and infected dog bites and a son who doesn't like sex, and thusly that makes him an okay protagonist.
Don't forget the random swastikas for no reason.
None of
the swastikas are evil, so therefore.
This film is a bunch of missteps where it's bounding over the great things it's doing in order to, I guess, make it something that sits really well in 1992.
Well, and this can work. We saw this pretty recently in Wishmaster.
Yeah.
We saw where we get kind of an odd love triangle story. It's actually quite a similar story, and that was something that was very interesting in Wishmaster. I'm not above saying we were just in the right place to watch that movie at that point.
Sure.
Maybe Wishmaster didn't do anything better than Amityville did. But for whatever reason, when it happens here, I'm mad.
Yeah.
Incest does return, though, so that's kind of interesting.
This is the return of incest.
And you have the stork kill, which is definitely the worst thing the house does.
The stork kill is great.
It is pretty great, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it must annoy you in how it happens outside of the house.
It does, and there's no fly present.
So in an attempt to outdo the cat ending, this has the titular line at the end.
The titular line ending.
So if you didn't think that it was bad enough, It's About Time by The Clock and the house coming back and whatever
Rusty's
other
Day
thing.
Out.
Rusty's Day Out. That is, in fact, a Patrick Reed Johnson reference. Then we get the turn towards the camera and the dramatic It's About Time.
Mm-hmm.
Next movie.
Okay, so this next movie seems like they have not a return to Amityville, not a return to the house, not a return to Sky Pig, not a return to any ideology of the entire series, except a budget.
It's 1 year after the previous film. We're in 1993 now, and it's the same producers. It's Christopher DeFaria and Antonio Toro who wrote the movie. I suppose we're the writers on the previous one as well, but once again, a different director. And so we have Sky Pig coming back. We have the mirror, which has at least the eyes.
Yeah.
And that's really all we can hope for. We're never going to see a pig in these fucking movies again, but it at least has the eyes. And so this is another one of those movies I have a soft spot for. I think I have a soft spot for it because it's what the Amityville Horror would look like if Jeremy Kasdan did it.
It is. It's
got some lofts and some abstract
Jeremy
tattoo art
Kasdan's
and
Amityville Horror, but it's Amityville Mirror.
So this is another one of the relics we have, this twisted mirror, which, by the way, would never be in the Amityville house. It's a spooky demon mirror. It doesn't belong there.
It looks like a Halloween decoration.
The idea of Amityville was it was a normal house and somebody went apeshit and slaughtered everybody.
It wasn't the devil's home.
Right. These weren't Satan worshippers, and here's one of their decorations. But we didn't take the twisted lamp to task for that, so whatever. Was the lamp twisted by evil? Maybe that's what happened. See, we actually see the mirror in a flashback, and it's hanging out on the wall, and it looks like this.
Yeah.
I'll accept that the lamp was a totally normal lamp and was twisted by evil. Physically, I mean.
Fuck you. Let the lamp be.
So they head off to the Ground Zero Cafe. I also love Ground Zero Cafe. Totally not okay, but it's 1993, so it hasn't happened yet. It's okay. And Ground Zero is a pretty generic term.
Sure.
Still, you could not open a Ground Zero Cafe today. That would oh man, and the cup of coffee has a fucking mushroom cloud coming out. And the guy who works there, you've been to some cafes before.
Right.
How often do you see the barista stereotype of guy with a handlebar mustache?
From Judas Priest.
Biker with a fucking... Yeah, that happens all the fucking time. They didn't have hipsters yet, so I guess it's handlebar mustache.
I don't think I've ever seen a barista at a coffee shop with a bald head.
So maybe the mustache is the wrong thing to look at.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. That guy does not belong in this movie. Weird. Also doesn't belong in this movie, Richard Roundtree.
And a third character, can we go with Terry O'Quinn?
Yeah, weird. So, I mean, Terry O'Quinn we'll hit on in a second. Richard Roundtree, I don't know, man. This is kind of like Bruce Campbell. I feel like this is the wrong place to even talk about it. We'll do Shaft later. In the meantime, I think we should just pretend this never happened.
No Richard Roundtree.
We'll never talk of it again. But Terry O'Quinn is Locke from Lost.
Yeah.
And is he still doing that J.J. Abrams thing with Michael Emerson?
What's it called? Odd Jobs?
Is that what it's going to be called?
Odd Jobs, yeah.
He
was also Howard Hughes in The Rocketeer, I believe.
Let's not forget his role in Alias, which, aside from Quentin Tarantino, is one of my favorite roles in Alias. I watched every one of those fucking episodes. I get to talk about it once in a while. I just have to take my credit, right?
I'm thinking about the credit I deserve for watching Lost, despite not wanting to for the last 3 years.
Lost ended after 3 seasons.
Oh, that's right.
Look, we fixed it, right? It ended after 3 seasons.
It's about time.
It's Jesus fuck. So Terry O'Quinn has a much higher voice in here. And
a
little bit more hair. Not as much hair as that voice should necessitate, really. He plays the detective. So this is, I'm really starting to feel like, I don't know, if this were a Jeremy Kasdan movie, which one would it be?
You mean Who Done It? Oh, you mean which movie?
Which movie?
Oh, definitely Wizard of Gore.
Yeah, right? Because you have kind of the investigation and I was going to say
There's
lofts,
a gumshoe.
But the gumshoe. Okay,
There's a gumshoe.
That's why. And the modern art and the suicide girls. Not enough suicide girls in this movie. I think
0% suicide
it was before
girls.
the internet.
Not even enough suicide, although there's a character that does have an interesting art setup that would allow for that.
She killed herself in the movie sort of by demons or something. So let's make her the suicide girl.
Right on.
There's a sweet Sage Francis reference I could make in here that no one would get. Let's make that time number 3, doublefeatureshow@gmail.com, if you get sweet Sage Francis references. Okay, so here's the thing we really need to talk about. The Amityville killer turns out to be homeless. Sort of.
Yeah.
Right? So, DeFeo's still in jail, even today, as we record this, and I assume by the time it goes up in several days. This is like the least editing time I've ever had on a show. What does this go up tomorrow? Next day?
Yeah, I think that's about right.
So he's still in jail, and I assume will still be in jail 2 days from now. But the movie says that the killer was released after Reagan stopped funding, and that he has a son that was loose. And so this is kind of a retcon. Well, a son that didn't die in the murder. Although if it were the actual murder we're talking about, the killer was, I believe, one of the sons and didn't have a son then himself. So we're in retcon territory, but I I mean, is this the original Amityville murder we're talking about?
I
Or
don't
are we
think
saying
so.
there was another murder in the house?
Well, I mean, the first and second films, also I guess the third, would have us believe that anytime you move in there, you kill someone, right?
But I just assumed there was no history in the house. We were just saying none of the other movies happened. I don't know why I made that assumption.
I don't either.
Probably because the movies assume that I'm going to make that assumption. They say there was one house, some evil happened there, and now there's a bunch of artifacts.
Right.
So you're telling me that this is one of the other movies' sons? Or maybe somebody we never even saw
It's
their
just one
story?
of the other people that live there.
So somebody went to the house, they went crazy, shot everybody. The police didn't notice that every time they move into this house, some people kill each other.
What are they going to do? Fucking cuff the doorknobs?
They could change the address. You know, that's another thing I love, is after the Lutzes, nobody complained of anything weird ever happening. In fact, the people who've lived there over the years say the only weird things that ever happened was when fucking weirdos who'd seen the movie show up at the house. These are people we know. Mm-hmm. All right, so I guess it's a different family.
Sure.
It's a different set of murders, and so it's not a retcon.
Well, we can say it is. It doesn't matter.
Good point. Doesn't matter. Totally a retcon. So a homeless man happens to be the killer who's released from the asylum when Reagan blah, blah, something happened. And so he had a son who takes photographs. They meet up. He gives him a mirror.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, you smash the mirror. And
Smash
that's
the
all there
mirror
is to it.
and the evil, and you don't have to be your father. I think one of my favorite parts about this film is the part where he's wielding a shotgun at all these people.
Yeah.
And the police are trying to stop him.
This
and,
is during the art installation.
Sure. And Chief Inspector Terry O'Quinn goes, no, I want to see how this plays out.
Right.
And calls off the police that are trying to get him to drop the gun. He's like, no. I think this is going to go somewhere.
Sure. Well, he suspects the evil that might be in the mirror. He sees where this thing's playing out. What do you think this movie's saying about art?
I think that, first off, I think that it's being ridiculously skeptical about how dumb people think things are art that aren't art.
Right.
But also, I don't know. I think it's wrong, and I think that it's overbearing.
Doesn't it seem strange, though, for a movie that's created by, obviously, artists, right? Because people who make movies are inherently art. I use the term art almost offensively, loosely. I talk about anything that's made by human beings that really doesn't need to be there.
Way to defecate, dude.
That's art. If you take a picture, that's art. And I know that's really abrasive for some people, especially when I first meet someone or first start talking about them and talk about art stuff, it probably comes off as really pretentious. But what is this show if not a long series of our poor choice in wording and grammar?
Absolutely.
So maybe we'd call this high art. But at the very least, it's art installations.
Sure.
It's people mocking American Gothic or commenting on that.
Sure.
And it's showing the masses of stupid people and they show up and clap. But I'm wondering who writes this kind of stuff.
I don't know. I think a lot of people have this kind of, they think that it's really hip that they think certain art is lame. There are people that really take pride in the fact that they can look at something and go, that's not art.
Yeah, but artists are like that?
I think, yeah.
That invoke American Gothic? Wouldn't you go the other direction and try and go as obscure as possible?
I don't know.
It starts to feel to me like producers. Producers come up with this story, and I guess what I'm saying is I just don't know why you would write about art if you don't give enough of a shit about it to know a whole lot past American Gothic.
Yeah, I don't
why
know,
would
man.
you choose to make that the centerpiece?
Probably because they think that they can get people on board to just rally and root against it.
You got to get asses in seats, and the way to do that is via a dollhouse.
The Amityville Dollhouse is the final installment of this poor series, man. All James Brolin wanted to do was create a staple in horror, and the last footprint he ever made in American cinemas was a dollhouse in the middle of a fucking, it's clearly a lot on some fucking studio's backyard.
Yep.
And there's a dollhouse, and I guess, okay, so here's the weird thing is, I guess the dollhouse is from the house, or it's just, now it's a voodoo house, right?
Yeah, it's
voodoo.
voodoo.
You make it to shaped like the evil house, and thusly the evil is incarnated in it through the power of voodoo dolls, which contain fly knights. And I'm not saying fly knights like N-I-G-H-T. I'm saying like knights, K-N-I-G-H-T. I'm speaking of insects that wield large medieval weapons, large for them, and they incarnate some evil, I guess. And
I really didn't realize how little sense this movie made until you started to describe it.
This one is probably one of the most nonsensical films.
Let's take a step back here. Why would you have... this is where I'm still at, right? Why would you have a miniature dollhouse version of your own house inside your house.
Well,
that's weird.
Yeah. Well, and here's another thing that I want to speculate. This dude builds his house, right?
Sure.
Presumably builds there's nothing around.
Right.
This house is in the middle of a canyon.
Right.
And there is not even
good place to raise a child.
There are no trees.
Great.
There's nothing there. So he presumably builds the house, builds everything around it, then goes into his shed and goes, "Huh, how did this dollhouse get here?"
He did build it, didn't he? Because there's all the jokes about it not being up to code or whatever. Oh, God damn it.
So I don't know. I guess maybe the shed was there before. Maybe he built it on the same lot. Any of this
is not a terrible place for a house. Obviously, all his black magic biker friends found it just fine in time for his daughter's birthday party.
Sure,
so,
that's true.
Or was it son's birthday? It doesn't fucking matter.
I think it's a son's. No, it was a daughter.
It's 1996. The last of these movies. And in an era where people were still pronouncing the date right. So that's good. Stephen White directs it. Joshua Michael Stern writes it. I'm still lost back at if the dollhouse was part of the original house, but I don't think that's it. I think we really want it to be an antique, and I think it's a coincidence. You get a little bit of exposition when they move the dollhouse from their shed that appears on the lot, and there's some kind of article there. The thing about the dollhouse is that I'm actually, from a movie-making perspective, I love how convincing the close-up shots of it are. Maybe not the interior, but when they're doing the exterior, I would
just
totally
like the fucking house.
Yeah, I would buy that. I mean, at least from these shitty movies. The quality of the movies isn't outstanding. The effects aren't outstanding, except that one where they blew up the house and they really blew it up good.
Yeah, long time.
But I would, I would buy that this is the house by using the miniatures here. So all of the speculation you or I might have of, well, we really can't get inside the house anymore. Maybe that's why they moved away from it. Or we were never really inside the house. No. We were always using actual exteriors and Mexican sound studio interiors. So I think it's just a change of pace. But it seems so weird to me. We joked about this when this Killapalooza was coming up. Whose idea is it to make this movie about a dollhouse? Who says that's... I get Leprechaun in the Hood.
Sure.
I get that.
Absolutely.
I don't get Amityville Dollhouse.
I think the only answer to that is find the dollhouse first, rake in the money after.
So somewhere sitting in the props department, they have a model of the house they were planning to use for something else, or they had already used previously, and they said, hey, here's a dollhouse shaped like the Amityville Horror House.
Or a super fan just made it.
Sure, that's possible.
And showed it to some person who told another person about it, who took pictures and put it up on the internet.
Although, I don't know, the way they burnt that house in the last scene really felt like victory. We've gotten rid of this shitty prop that's been sitting around for so long.
That's true. Room for more donuts.
Feels like maybe there's a tax write-off in this movie somewhere, and that's kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you ever saw... I'm sure you've heard of it, the Roger Corman Fantastic Four.
I've heard of it.
Where it's an incredibly shitty film. And I guess they had to make it just to maintain the rights so they could hold on to that for later or whatever. It kind of reminds me of that sort of scenario.
Yeah. So all speculation aside, we get what is an absolute cop-out return to our only staple in the entire series. So we have this kind of underlying the mom wants to fuck the son incest thing going on.
Super cool.
Except they're not related.
Yeah, not as weird.
So, they did this...
It's dialing down, really.
I don't know if you're aware of this, because I made this reference while we were watching it. But in one of the Brady Bunch movies...
You talked about this on the show before.
I've seen the Brady Bunch movies.
Okay.
And in one of the Brady Bunch movies, it's more recent, came out probably late 90s, early 2Ks, Brad and Marcia, the eldest son and daughter... If anybody's not familiar with the story of the Brady Bunch, it's the story of a lovely lady who is bringing up three very lovely girls.
That's really all you can say without us infringing on copyright.
And then there was a guy, and then there's also this father who had three sons. Point is, mother and father each have their own children from previous relationships. Then the father and mother get married, so the brothers are not related to the sisters in any way except they're step-siblings, right?
Right.
So in one of the film, this is the fucking Brady Bunch, the staple of happy, fun time family entertainment. Brad and Marcia fuck and end up getting married.
Okay.
That's how taboo
Sure.
incest among step relation is. It's in the fucking Brady Bunch. That's no longer like even close to taboo.
The Brady
It's
Bunch
just
is a lot weirder
cop-out.
than I ever sat down to realize it is. Isn't that kind of a weird story?
Yeah.
But this is coming from the guy who can't understand the dollhouse. So
Right.
whatever, that's fine. So yeah, I can see where you would think the incest thing is a cop-out. I'm just glad they brought it back. They sort of realized, or maybe it's an accident. Maybe they had no fucking clue and it
I
just
think
turned out.
that's the result of just having a family in a house and trying to fuck with them. I think the default is you have to mess with their head, and the best way to illustrate that is sex.
Well, there's some other family stuff going on too. You also have the younger kid who is Tiny Nimoy. Tiny Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, he also played Henry in a made-for-TV film starring Sinbad and Ben Savage called Aliens for Breakfast.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Email me, doublefeatureshow@gmail.com, if you've ever seen Aliens for Breakfast. That's number 4.
So we've reached the end here, and 3 of the 8 movies actually take place in the house. 3 of the 8 fucking movies. The Amityville Horror, 3 of the 8 movies are in the Amityville house. We have a family story, we have incest.
We have a zombie.
And we have Zombie Dad, who we light on fire, I guess the worst thing the house does.
I guess, yeah. Worst thing the house does is either zombie. Well, I don't know. I guess the worst thing the house does is have a tentacle reach through the salt light and kill Uncle Biker.
It's so weird where that movie ends and they're all inside the fucking dollhouse.
Portals, man.
So much like our other awkward franchises, this one stumbles awkwardly out of, let's call it Sky Pig's Final Stand.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't you glad we went through that?
You know, while we were going through it, I wasn't. I was horribly upset. I was disappointed. I was tired. We had to start early. These were 8 movies. This is the most Killapalooza work we've had to do in a long time.
Yeah, it is.
And
I thought we were lowering the requirement,
right?
Not lowering the standard.
But now, having discussed it, I feel like we've actually done people a service.
Well, and it's just another point of comparison. Why not have it?
Yeah, and I think that I honestly don't expect any of Podmanity to have watched these 8 films. But I do expect that you all fucking listened to this entire show, and now you can pretend you've seen all the movies.
Glorious.
And at least in that realm, we're doing somebody a service, right?
These people are doing themselves a service, because I imagine we're going to talk about Sky Pig every 5 minutes from here on, and no one's going to have any idea. I actually really want to make double feature shirts that say Sky Pig.
I think that would be fantastic.
I don't even know if they should say double feature on them anywhere. I think maybe they should just say Sky Pig.
Well, maybe, I don't know. Would you buy a double feature shirt if it had something to do with Sky Pig? doublefeatureshow@gmail.com.
We also have a website. It's doublefeatureshow.com. And some updates on some different stuff. So Audible has the Amityville horror book. What is bookshow.doublefeatureshow.com?
Bookshow.doublefeatureshow.com.
So you can get that for free. If you listen to that, the audiobook, or if you read it, do actually report back in, because I'm kind of curious about the actual book and how stuff's portrayed in there. And we'll fucking put your email on the year-end show. So we're going to kind of revisit this. If you end up listening to the audiobook, send us an email. We'll stick it on the end of the year. While we're talking about the end of the goddamn year, which for us ends in what, June, July? Is that how
I think it's about June.
The end of our show works? I realize I just keep saying things like the end of the year and no one has any clue what we're talking about. The donation thing where we let people pick out the movies and they pick a bunch of shitty Michael Bay movies, that thing,
funny joke. Actually,
please don't do that. Whatever, they can do whatever they want. We agreed to this. That's going to end next Killapalooza. So next time a Killapalooza is coming up, that'll be the last time we're taking in any donations.
Yeah, we don't want your money after that day.
So fucking
apparently
do that. Well, we got to cut it off at some point and get ready and watch movies and whatever. So donate.doublefeatureshow.com.
Right.
Time is finally fucking running out.
It's about time.
I didn't make one fucking Joss Whedon reference during the entire Dollhouse section.
Yeah.
And so you have to stop making It's About Time jokes. With all that said, I think glittermouse.com is the where that video is going to go up.
That's going to be there.
It'll be on our website somewhere.
Cool.
A link somehow. I don't know. I have 2 days to figure this shit out.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we'll put it on YouTube, and it'll be around. People will see it.
Yeah,
go on our Facebook
absolutely.
page. You'll see it.
Go on the Double Feed. You can also go on the Glittermouse Facebook page. I'll put it up there too.
Everywhere across the entire internet. Go easy on me though. This is the first actual Final Cut thing that I have edited. The last time I put out that Birthday Massacre DVD, believe it or not, that was all using QuickTime, I think QuickTime 6, QuickTime 7, and iMovie. For that exact reason, I didn't want to use Final Cut. It terrified me. And it's awesome, but it's still kind of terrifying. What are we doing on the show next time?
I still don't have that answer.
It's been an hour. You're obviously very tired. We're doing Django and help me with that.
Sukiyaki Western Django.
What was that again?
Sukiyaki Western Django by Takashi Miike.
Oh my god. The first part is what Sukiyaki
Yes.
Western Django.
Right.
So not Django, but Django.
Just Django.
Westerns, Takashi, Django, good time.
Watch more fucking film.
Bye. The thing I love about incest... That just came right out of my mouth, didn't it?
That's everyone's new text message tone.
Oh, God.
Movie. I don't know if it was the version that we watched, but it definitely looked like somebody made it in their basement.
Yeah, it really did. But I think because everything's in full frame, it's in 3x4 after the first movie. So that's the only one they made really for cinemas. Or had the budget to get, 16:9, which was apparently hard, I guess.
Yeah.
The point is, a lot of people showed up for the first.
That's true.
And some more people showed up for the second. Yep. And after that, no one really showed up, which is why I think you see those 3 stars.
Sure, and I think that a lot of the reason that the first film it's obvious that this film was the, quote, blockbuster of the bunch. We have James Brolin, who is by no means a small-time actor, especially in 1979. Margot Kidder is Margot Kidder. I mean, I don't know how many people are actually familiar with Margot Kidder by name, but if
pigtails and black and white skirts.
Yeah,
man.
If you've seen a movie in 1970 or between 1970 and 1985, Margot Kidder was probably the hottest one in it. That's kind of where you can let that... She was in Black Christmas.
Yeah, so these guys are playing the Lutz family. So I guess this is as good a time as any to get into kind of the story behind the movie, but it's based on the Jay Anson book, The Amityville Horror. And that book was kind of written as being based on a true story. Now, although the movie never says it's based on a true story, and I guess we should kind of give the movie credit for that, although I think they probably just forgot to include that. I'm sure it was on a poster
I'm guessing
right?
They just assumed that it was,
everybody knew.
Understood.
Yeah, right. So this guy flips out and he kills his whole family, the DeFeo family. And, and they find the guy guilty and he goes away. And so this house goes up for sale. And one of the things that's really great, actually, is that it was furnished, too. Because if you're going to prison and you killed your whole family, no one's really around to...
Sure. Well, they touched on it in, what was that, the Amityville Mirror, where they were talking about the one good thing about killing your whole family is that you get all the inheritance.
Right, yeah. But if you go to jail, then you really don't get shit. So the house was sold furnished, which is actually true. The house was really sold furnished. And, there's some interesting stuff there to talk about when you get into that James Randi area of, not that one, the other one, of haunted possessions of how people feel, how people are comfortable with an item. And if they learn the item belonged to a serial killer, then suddenly they're uncomfortable with it.
Right.
So let me just cut to the chase on this.
Well, boys, looks like you started the fun without me.
You're all sick. Every last one of you.
We're going to need a bigger gun.
What's the matter? You scared of things that go boom, boom?
Give me one goddamn reason why I shouldn't blow your goddamn brains all over that goddamn wall.
My name is Eric. I'm joined by Michael Kester.
Yes, you are.
And we have a goddamn show to do.
We have a goddamn Killapalooza to do.
Oh yeah, Killapalooza. Those happen.
Those do happen. Despite our better judgment.
Yeah, even. I know. Well, we keep trying to not.
Maybe this will be the one. Every time, I think for the past 4 or 5 Killapaloozas, we say maybe this will be the one that people realize this isn't worth it. However, I mean, I know we've been talking about it, but there is Saw. I will go until Saw has been done.
That's going to happen. That's not our next Killapalooza.
No.
Should we hint at the... Let's not do that.
Nope.
Fuck that. No one knows what the next Killapalooza will be. But there'll probably be one. So what are the movies that's going to make people no longer want to listen to a Killapalooza ever again?
Today we're going to cover all 8 of the Amityville horror films. You'll note that
I noted.
We're not covering the Michael Bay prequel.
Okay.
That's because it's
Did you say
Michael
prequel?
Bay.
That's not a prequel.
I'm
it's
sorry.
a sequel.
It's a remake.
What are you talking about? Oh, remake. I said it was a sequel.
Yeah.
We're so not ready to do this show.
Well, anyway, we're not covering that because it's Michael Bay.
Fuck that.
But we are covering the 8 films, which may or may not be about a house in the American Northeast.
I'm going to go with may not. Can we just Fuck the Coy thing. I'm going to go with may not.
How about are not?
We're going to learn about the Amityville hoax today, which is really the only real thing I hope to accomplish.
That's the meat.
If you've never tuned in for a Killapalooza before, this show tries even less than all the other episodes, and probably succeeds even under that goal. But I'm going to try and dispel some fucking hoax today.
Sounds like a great
time. I think
the
movies call for it. At least 3 or 4 of them try to invoke it.
Sure.
We're going to get to the origins of Ghost Cold.
That's true.
Which is something I think always gets edited out of the show, but I joke about all the time. And we're going to have some self-serving announcements.
Sure, that's right. We're also going to talk about some aerial swine.
Oh, yeah, we got to get to that, too. Oh, I forgot about the t-shirt. Okay. First things first here, then. This Glitter Mouse is doing something. Wait, even better. One better. I forgot that I'm involved in this, too.
You're
myself and Glitter Mouse involved. Is doing something. So what happens is the Lutzes start talking to DeFeo's attorney, and over what his attorney, William Weber was the guy's name, his attorney. What I think he later said was a bottle of wine. Over a bottle of wine, they concocted this scheme. They came up with this ghost story, and they sold it to a publisher who hired on Jay Anson to write the book. And that's how the hoax got started. And so this is an admitted hoax. I mean, the Lutz family would never admit this because they have so much stock in it. But William Weber came right out and said later that, we made this thing up over a bottle of wine one night. And later the Lutz family sued him, and we'll get to the very litigious family here when we start to talk about some of the later movies. But that's our setup for what happened and why a lot of people think that, the Amityville horror house actually has some sort of history.
Well, that's essentially the setup and teardown to why these films exist.
Right.
They exist because it's supposed to have happened. Otherwise, this film would not be anything more than the Haunted Mansion.
Sure.
Right?
One, the coincidence there while you bring up the Haunted Mansion is it's 28 days, right? That they spend in the house, which of course makes us think about 28 Days Later in that franchise. And the movie breaks it down day by day, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Sometimes interesting, sometimes excruciating.
Yeah, mostly excruciating.
Until it gets to the end and it cheats and it just says, fuck this, I'm out of here. So it's some kind of mix of, The Exorcist and The Shining, right? You kind of do a little
that's pretty much dead on.
Things.
The Exorcist and The Shining with a little bit of Fistful of Dynamite.
So this is one of the most talked about movies, and the hoax thing is really all I cared to delve into.
We don't need to discuss the film. It's been discussed.
The big thing I want to ask you, and I think this will be a reoccurring question we need to get to, is what's really the worst thing that the house does?
Okay, so can I just set this up really quick?
Because this is our slasher, right? The house is our slasher.
So we have a Killapalooza, and by default, Killapalooza has a recurring character that kills people.
That's the very definition, man.
That is what we're doing with Killapalooza, is we're watching a single person raise the body count.
All right.
Started with Jason. Can't get higher than Jason, but maybe more interesting.
Sure.
So when presented with an inanimate object that's killing people, and that's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to say house. I'm going to say an inanimate object that is killing people. We were forced to, instead of come up with the coolest kill, releasing 4 EPs. We just released the one.
So when you say we're, you don't mean you and I. You mean you and Glitter Mouse.
I mean me and Glitter Mouse.
Okay, we got to back up for a second here. So you're in a band.
I'm in a band. I forgot. Yes.
Yeah, nobody knows about that because we only talk about it at the end of the show.
Exactly.
And nobody makes it that far in any of our fucking episodes.
So I'm in a band called Glitter Mouse, and a while ago on the show we mentioned that we had released an EP.
Awesome.
And we're releasing another one on April 1st, but then the following EP after that one, which will probably be sometime around June.
This is insane. You're on what, 4 EPs a year?
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
You are actually involved. Not only are you involved because you wrote part of one of the songs.
It was a bass line. It's about 10 seconds of the song.
But also you did some serious work on a live video.
I did. So a lot of people ask about this, actually, and it never makes its way to the show because there's nothing really to report. But we do these other projects outside of Double Feature. And you and I joke all the time about how great Double Feature is because we can promote our projects.
Sure,
which
vehicle we never, for other projects.
We really don't do that nearly as often as we should. But while you and I have worked on a lot of stuff together, and you have about 30 movie scripts sitting around that I'm waiting to do stuff on, and we're just, we're collaborating on all this stuff. we never quite get to the final product.
Yes, exactly.
Now, your products reach their end destination.
And so do yours.
Right. We both make stuff, but none of the things you and I work on,
right.
I think because of this fucking show.
Yeah, it's pretty much every time we get together, we talk about our other projects for just about as long as it takes to go, this movie would go with this movie.
Right.
And then we schedule for the next 4 or 5 years of double feature.
Yeah, so we never get around to doing stuff. But, so I made a video based off one of your live things. And people love this because we get lots of geeky camera emails all the time. Mm-hmm. I shot it on a DSLR.
Yep.
On 2 DSLRs. I shot it on a T1i and a T2i, which are they're pretty low end Canon. Anybody could get a hold of one of these things. I don't own either of them. Yeah. I borrowed them from other people. And we shot this song, and it's pretty awesome. I just finished doing the color on it. Actually, by the time this goes out, it will be on the internet somewhere.
Yes.
So probably
just glittermouse.com.
Glittermouse.com.
I mean, I know that's where I'm going to put it.
I'm going to stick it in the show notes somewhere. I think I'll put it on YouTube or Vimeo or one of those
stick
things.
It on YouTube for sure.
So people can finally see something that you and I have
worked on
collaborated
together.
on. Fan-fucking-tastic. All right, let's get to these awful movies.
Yes.
Wow, I hope people actually watch these movies, because then my dumb little video really looks fantastic. As always, there's going to be chapters. There's going to be a lot of chapters.
So many chapters.
We're going to spoil the movies.
Yeah.
What? It could happen. The first one is from 1979.
That's right.
The Amityville Horror.
So
known as the Amityville Horror, it only goes down from here. I think
it's weird because that's totally the case. And so I had seen the remake. I hadn't seen any of the other films.
So you hadn't even seen 1979's The Amityville Horror.
No.
Awesome.
And I was expecting 1979, James Brolin, Margot Kidder, The Amityville Horror to be this benchmark in horror,
right?
That it seems like it is. You know the house, you know what it looks like, you know that it's the Amityville Horror it's just a verbal
icon,
staple when it comes to horror. When people hear the Amityville Horror, they go, "That sounds terrible," but they don't realize what they're saying.
Well, I think it's because there's 9 goddamn movies. And anytime there's 9 movies, there must be some sort of history there. And then there's the sort of based on actual whatever, who fucking cares. And there's a book as well. Sleepy Nap Time book for the Amityville Horror.
Right.
And so it's a Stuart Rosenberg movie. It's the guy who did the director of Cool Hand Luke.
Okay.
And you know what? Actually, I want to touch on a lot of the people who made these movies, if for no other reason than to hold them accountable. But mostly we're playing on that 3-point scale again.
Yes, the back to Children of the Corn.
Right, that's what it was.
We invented what we have. It comes up all the time.
Yeah.
It's what we call a 3-point scale, which is we are no longer operating in the
1 to
between
10.
1 to 10. Every film is a 3. It's a matter of where on the 3-point scale it's going to fall.
Where's that decimal?
Yeah.
Which is it's also great for double feature because it's a terrible name.
Yeah.
You would never figure out it's worse than the Hudsucker Proxy. No one knows what the fuck this title means. So it's the decimal point, right? We're not talking about if the film is a 2 or a 5 or an 8 or whatever. Mm-hmm. We're talking about if it's 3.2 or 3.5.
Right.
What level of bad are we dealing with? And of course, we're going to evangelize these films as if they're the greatest things ever, because that's what we do on Double Feature.
Any films that get a star is a good film for me.
Yeah, right. So I believe the first 2 movies are the only ones, as far as IMDb goes, that have anything greater than 3 stars.
And honestly, that's surprising, because the second